Hi, it's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too.
It's so silly because I've been like half and half with my guests of like half people that I know. So I'm like usually catching up. It's like, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
There's like a little bit of backstory. And then some I'm just meeting for the first time. And it feels a little odd just to like do it on the computer. Like, hey, it's not the usual conventional way of like at least meeting at a party or I don't
Yeah.
know, bar, whatever you used to meet people.
Yeah.
But thank you for doing this. It's so nice to meet you. I think Allie recommended me to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Allie. That's why I thought you lived around here because since she knows you, I was like, oh, she must live local. So I wasn't paying attention to the time.
No, it's so silly because I'm so stuck in like this is my time. And so when I ask people, I'm like, oh, 3 o'clock or 7:30, and everyone will kind of go along. Then I'm like, wait a minute. And then like after we've scheduled, we'll have to backtrack and be like,
Yeah.
oh, you're 2 hours ahead or 1 hour, behind. And so it's been a whole thing. So don't even worry about it. I'm glad you checked out because actually what happened with Allie, we thought we had two different times. And so when she checked in, I'm so glad she did because then we realized that we had two different times.
Oh, yeah. So that's good. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so no worries. Well, it's nice to meet you. Tell me about your mother. Tell me where you're at now. And then I saw that you have a little baby right now. Is that your first or?
He's my second.
Yeah. Okay. How old's
So,
your first?
so my first is 4.5. He'll be 5 early next year. And then, yeah, my baby is almost 9 months old.
Aw.
We have the two boys.
Wow. Okay. I have a girl and she's going to be one next week, which is silly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm not ready.
I wouldn't be either. I never
Yeah.
am.
Well, I just keep, it's silly. So last night we had a tornado warning.
Oh, yeah.
And I've lived like I've seen tornado warnings and I've heard them before, but they weren't so close to our house. Whereas yesterday, it got really warm outside. It was 75 and it's been 50 and really calm. And I'm like, wait, this is the calm before the storm. And then the warning alarm started going off, and then we got instructions to go to a safe area, to a safe zone. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like 1 a.m. So I finally put her to bed and I grabbed her and then we went downstairs into the bathroom. This is like our protected area.
Yeah.
And I'm just on the floor with her in this bathroom, sitting next to the toilet. She's kind of sleeping. I'm just kind of holding her together. And like all these emotions start going through. You're just like, oh my gosh, you're about to hit one. There's a tornado going on. And I went to a place of just praying for like our safety and please
Yeah.
keep our house safe. Please keep this baby safe. And I had to like recognize that I was like, this is the first time I've ever been so scared, not for my life at all,
Yeah.
but for her.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like I went through this such a roller coaster, but I was like, I wanted to keep while everything was going on and she was still up, I was like, let's play, everything is fine. Well, there was a point I was shaking. I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. We're okay. Everything came fine. By 5 a.m., we came up to our bed. And then this morning we saw, during the nighttime when it started hitting really hard and like the winds were going crazy, it was like 10 miles east of us and then went over us and up. And then it hit Kentucky really bad, which is like 20 miles north of us.
Yeah.
And there's like 100 people who have died. And I'm like, that was 30 miles from us. Like,
Oh, wow.
and I'm in such a place where I'm like, I'm praying for all the people. I'm so sorry that it happened, but at the same time, I'm like so thankful that it didn't happen to us, which seems so like bad.
Not when you have kids.
But it was such a weird experience. Like this is my first time to be like as a mom to be fully praying to like, oh my gosh, I'm on the bathroom floor holding my baby next to the toilet, hoping everything's gonna be all right. And I'm guessing those people who did have their like homes, you know, like there's some pictures where like roofs are gone. I mean, it's bad. And I'm like, that's what they're going through. They're sitting there with their babies holding their family together.
Yeah. I can't imagine. That's the thing with you can never fathom or imagine what it feels like to have children and to care so deeply about someone else until you do. And that's the thing, your own safety is, I feel like as an adult, like you kind of understand, like I'm I'm not immortal. Like I will die one day. And you, to some extent, you accept that. But then whenever you have a child, you don't want to imagine that. You can't imagine that. And you know what? We were actually just in a really bad car accident like a few weeks ago, like right around Thanksgiving. And it was the same thing. Like as soon as we got in that car accident, my only thought was both of my boys were with me. And my only thought was like, are my children okay? And like just jumping out of the car, like I wasn't even concerned or thinking about anything else. It was the same thing. It was like, are my boys okay? Like,
Yeah.
what if something would have happened to them? Like, and you just don't know how you would have reacted, or something like that, like a tornado or someone hitting your vehicle, and it's out of your control. Like things like that.
Yeah.
That's the scary thing is you have no control over it. But I'm very glad that you guys are okay.
I'm glad that you're okay from your car accident. That was one of the things that I kept kind of thinking about. It kept coming up in the back of my mind. There are so many things that we do as moms and dads, as parents, as grandparents, but to protect our babies and things that we are in control of. So, baby proofing the house, making sure they're eating things that are going to be safe for them. And those are the things that we do that are in our control. And sometimes we mess up, they'll still fall or bump their head, things happen. But it's such a different feeling. It's really helpless when it's out of your control. When it's somebody else driving, when it's a weather phenomenon that I'm not going to go wrestle up a tornado and be like, you got to get out of here. Like, I have kids, like, and you just can't do anything. Mm-hmm. And I guess those are the moments that, if you're religious, you come and that's all you can do is pray. Because you can't go shoot a gun at the tornado. That's not going to help anybody. You can't really drive away at that point because you don't know which way it's heading, what's it going to do. And you just have to sit and pray. Like there's just...
Yeah.
And that for me, that helps me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I'm praying all the time. Like all the time as a mom. It's like I never stop praying. I mean, I was like that before I had kids, but it's like, I feel like you're just always thinking of like, just their well-being, and just the future. And I feel like I am so aware that so much is out of our control, and the future is not guaranteed, and the future is unexpected. You don't know what's tomorrow going to bring, or what are my children, what struggles will they face as they grow up. And I feel like I'm just always just praying about those things because like you said, it's like I'm not super religious, but I'm very spiritual, and I just feel like prayer is one of those things where it's not going to hurt, so why not just do it? Like, so I agree,
Yeah, I see it in multiple layers, because you can see it from a point of like meditation or prayer. And it's the whole idea of like what you think comes true. So whether you're praying to God or you're, saying these meditations for yourself, as long as you're saying the words and you're turning your thoughts into reality of these positive things of like, protect my baby, please just protect my baby. And of course sometimes I'm like, God, just protect her from heartache, from like anyone hurting, from anything, just you don't want anything bad to happen to them.
Nothing,
And then there's this weird acceptance of like, of course you're going to have heartache. Like you're going to have breakups and like, you're going to have little fights with your friends or maybe big fights, And you can't protect them from that. All you can do is kind of help them and guide them right now to make best decisions and protect themselves when they get older. But it's difficult to like know that things happen. And then you don't want to become overbearing because then it's like, well, they'll rebel and want to just go run on the street or something because you always told them not to run on the street. And it's like, no, I'm doing this to protect you, I promise.
It's so hard finding that balance.
Yeah, but from what I'm hearing, and I kind of understand now, it just never leaves because at first you worry them as a baby, then you worry about them as a kid, as a toddler, and then as a teenager, they get into their own thing. And then it's almost more difficult when they're an adult because you can't tell them what to do. You can't protect them. You just have to be like, okay, that's the choice you made. I will be right here as you follow through with this, but I'm not sure about it. Why did you do that? I can't imagine what our like parents go through.
I can't either, really.
Did your motherhood bring you, are you close with your mom and dad or your parents or?
Yeah, I'm close with them. My sons are actually at their house right now.
Oh, okay.
So I am close with them, but it's one of those things where it's like, we are never going to parent exactly how our parents parented us. You know,
Oh yeah.
we're different people. We're
Yeah.
making different choices. So I think it's been, in my experience, it's been a struggle being so close with my parents, like so close with them. I didn't move out until I got married, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I've been a mom now for over 4 years, it's still been a struggle going from their little girl to I'm a mother now and I have children and I need to decide what's best for my children and I need to grow up, like I need to grow up and parent my family.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
weird, just sometimes you still feel like there are times and instances where it's like you still feel like a kid or you still feel like their kid. Like you said, how once you have adult children, you can't just control them.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be really challenging coming into that role and, you know, becoming a wife and a mother and realizing, okay, I'm never going back to where I was. I'm never going back to living with my parents being a child.
Yeah.
This is where I am now, and I need to adapt, and my relationship with my parents needs to adapt to that,
Yeah.
to fit, to help both of us,
There's so much growth that happens on both sides because not only are you growing as a mom to your kids, but on the other side, you have this different growth relationship of you growing out of being a kid for your parents.
Yeah.
While at the same time, of course, you're always their kid. And so I'm sure
Yeah.
for them, it's hard to kind of juggle. Of course, like we said, they want to protect you and advise you on things where you need to almost create a distance to be like, well, I need to make my own choices and stand by them because that's how I will learn. Plus, this is now my family. So it's kind of hard, especially when you are close to them because, like, I don't know, sometimes my mom gives me advice and then I have a hard time telling her that's not how I want to do things. Like, I'll express this in a few different ways, and then she's like, "No, still do this."
Too. Yes.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I really, really do. Yeah.
It's hard because, like, my mom's like, "No, do this with this potty thing." She's like, "No, get this one potty." I'm like, "No, we're doing something else. We're doing this like step up potty into the toilet." And she's like, "No, do this little potty." I'm like, "No, we're doing the step up potty." This is just an example. And then so she went and bought the potty that I said no to.
She's trying to be helpful, but you are trying to make a decision for your family.
Yes, and it's so silly because I'm so grateful because I can see that she's doing it out of love. And then at the same time, I'm like so frustrated because I said no a few times and I'm trying to do something different. And it's hard because as a first time mom, I feel like I have no credibility to be like, no, this is going to work. Whereas she's had 3 kids and now her kids are having kids. So therefore
who are you to say no to that?
Yes. And I'm like, how do you express it? It's this. And then
you don't want to be disrespectful. You don't want to hurt your parents. You love them more than anything. And you appreciate them. Like, that's how I feel. It's like, I appreciate, my parents are watching my kids right now. Like,
yeah.
And as a mom, it's like there are 3 people you trust your kids with, maybe. If you're lucky, 3 people in the world. So, of course, it's like I respect and appreciate them more than anything in the world. But at the end of the day, we invest so much time. Like, I'm sure with the toilet, you probably researched all the potties and you researched what is going to work best for my little girl. And I think that our parents don't realize that we are actually staying up late at night thinking about these things.
Yeah.
They might seem insignificant, but they're not to us.
Yeah.
We really take it seriously, And, sometimes we do wish that our parents could just step back and be like, okay, I trust you. I trust that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of that like if you're in a video game, you know how there's like a saving point that like when you restart, you can at least come back to that point. It's kind of like I need those milestones with my parents for them to be like, no, you can let me go to make my own decision. You don't always have to babysit me. Like once we cross that point, where is that saving point? Is that a conversation that you have with him and saying, I need you to let me go a little bit? Because I know it comes from love, but in some way it almost comes through disrespectful because it's like, well, why don't you trust me that I had put in those time to make this decision that I think will best benefit my family. But you're kind of overstepping, saying, oh, I'm probably still a little girl and I don't know anything and you know better, therefore you're going to make this decision for me.
Yeah.
So it feels like I'm not being heard when it's a decision for my family.
Yeah. It's very hard.
Yeah,
And I think
haven't.
those are the things that we are still going through as adults. And I don't know about you, but I know for us, still living that, like still having those moments where I feel like I'm totally not being heard or I'm not being respected, I feel like that in turn is what encourages me to, even with my 4-year-old, like having those moments of like, I hear you, I respect you. Like, if that's the decision you want to make over this, like, I'm going to let you make that decision no matter what, if I think it's wrong or right. Obviously, not big decisions, but small ones, because I want to have a habit now, even though he's 4. It's like I want to start the habit now of trying so hard to give him the freedom to make choices and to respect those choices and not to undermine him or whatever, because we're still living it. And it's like it can be hurtful, like it really can be, you know.
It's silly because you can often see how like a parenting pendulum swings the other way. You know, if you have like really like country parents, sometimes the kids will want to move to the city because they want something different, or like city parents, the kids are like, oh, I gotta get to the country because I'm so sick of it, you know. It just goes opposites. And it's interesting because we learn from our parents, and so we take on things that we do like, but we want to change things that we don't like. And that's another thing that kind of becomes an obstacle, because your parents did things, you know, 20, 30 years ago when you were a kid, which things have dramatically changed. And so
much.
And so some things I'm like, oh, I definitely want to take some things from what you're saying and I want to utilize them because they do have a lot of value. But at the same time, I need you to recognize that we are going to do things differently because there's more things available. There is
research,
different structure. And it just is different, you know. And you hear how every person's different, every baby's different. It's like, even though we're a family, we can still do things differently. But to have that conversation with your mom is so... I don't even know. I haven't had that conversation with my mom. Now I just say, okay, Mom, like... And then whatever it is, like, we either utilize it or we don't. But I feel like sometimes her attitude, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me it reads as, you know, she would be saying like, okay, sweetheart, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to do this thing and give it to you because you will benefit in the end. And you'll just learn. And it kind of like, I don't know. I picture myself then like being a little girl with like pigtails and my mommy's telling me what to do. And I'm like, no, I'm supposed to be the mom now. And I do need you to let go so I can learn. Again, like you said about with your son, if you're giving him that freedom to learn whether it's going to be right or wrong, I as an adult also need that freedom because I need to learn if it's going to be right or wrong. And if I don't learn, how can I teach my kid then if something's going to be right or wrong?
Exactly.
No, it's so odd. Cool. Yeah. I originally began the question because I wanted to see if your relationship became better because now as a mom, you can kind of understand what your mom went through.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so for me, sometimes I'm like, wow, like I can't believe certain things my mom did. But then it's hard not to compare because then you want to be like, well, how did this happen? How'd you do this differently? And I'm doing this differently. It's a mess. It's a mess of things. It's sticky bread pudding.
And it's like it'll never stop. Like I feel like even until our kids are adults, we're still going to be figuring out this relationship with our parents and this walk with them and everything. Kind of like marriage. It's like your relationship with your parents is kind of how it is, you know, with your husband. Like my relationship with my husband, it's always going to be evolving and changing. And I'm always going to be learning how to be, you know, the best wife or to listen to him and not to be too overbearing and all of those things. And you don't realize, you think when you're a kid, oh, I'm just going to grow up and be an adult and have a family one day. And you do not at all think about all those little relationships that are still going to be in your life and things don't just change overnight. It's like things change over the course of years and years. Like for us, one of those things is like that my mom and I have both had to find ways to show respect for each other. Even though we haven't really grown apart, we've just grown in different ways. So my parents, like you were saying, country parents, like my parents are very much those country parents. And at first, when I started having kids, I was very much like, oh, I want to do things totally different than my parents did. But now I feel more like I can look back and I can appreciate, wow, like they did these certain things for us. Like we were always outside, like we, all these things. And I appreciate all of that. But there are still things that are different. So for me, one of the things before I had kids was I became like a minimalist, like a very strict minimalist. Like I got rid of everything.
Okay.
And that was a very hard thing to, like, my relationship with my mom, like what we used to do together all the time was shopping. Like that was our thing. It was like shopping, getting things together. So for me to just get rid of all this stuff that I have bought or she's bought me or we've bought together, I think that was really hard for her. And because
it has like a sentimental value, like of the times you went or the actual object. Yeah.
I think and it also was just like weird. I think it was weird for my mom to see me change in that way. Like, who is she? Like, who is Jourdan? Why is she getting rid of all of her stuff? Like, she really couldn't understand it. And I don't expect her to understand that. That's a very personal and spiritual journey for someone to go through, to get rid of all their belongings.
Because you're like purging yourself from all the things, and you just, it clears your mind because you're no longer worried about the surfaces or what's here, what's there. Did you lose? Like it's a clean slate.
Yeah. So at first that was really hard for my mom. It was like, and I think both my parents kind of, but it was like, how are we going to deal with her? Like she just gets rid of everything.
Yeah.
But now, 6 or 7 years later, it's one of those things where it's like it's really nice. I had to put down my foot a little bit, but now it's like she understands and actually respects this. And so like for Christmas is coming up. And I know that after years of kind of this awkward phase, now she kind of gets it and she's like, oh, Christmas is coming. And she'll get me or my son a gift and she'll say things like, you can keep this at our house if you want. Like because she knows like I might not keep everything at my house. So she was like, if you would rather keep it here, so it's not cluttering up your space, she gives me the freedom to do that, which is nice. Yeah. But it takes a while to get there, It takes a while. Like you just started your family with your baby girl. So all these things, all these little decisions and big decisions with your kids, it's like it definitely takes multiple conversations and circumstances for I feel like your mom to kind of get the idea of, oh, that's how she's doing things. Oh, I should probably respect that a little bit more, or whatever it is.
That's so good for us to learn and to keep in mind for when we're in that place.
Yeah.
Something I try to remember but often forget is like, and she teaches me, my daughter at least, this like daily, I'll think, oh, she's, this is our schedule. And then I think, oh, tomorrow it's going to be the same. And it's not. And I have to remember that she's not the same person she was yesterday, because today she learned something new. She now realizes cause and effect, or she realizes when she does something, mom comes or does, like she's a whole new person. And so sometimes you're like, oh, well, her nap schedule was like this, it'll probably be this way again. Maybe today is the day she changes from 2 naps to 1 nap. And so it just throws everything off. And I often forget that in my relationships with like adults, like with my husband, I'm like, oh, he's my husband, I know him. Yet technically, day by day, he changes. He might make promises to himself that I might not know about. And so let's say he makes a promise of like, okay, I'm going to start waking up at 5 a.m. and I will do this, this, and this. Or I will stay up late and do this. And like, it's a promise for him because he's working on himself independently. And if I don't know it or don't recognize it, I might take it personal. Like, well, why is he waking up early? Why is he going to sleep late? Or what is this change that he's doing? What is he working on? But it's under the assumption that he should function as the same person that I know him, whereas he's not. And it's more so of like my own personal example, because I sometimes will set my own goals of like, okay, I'm going to start doing this, or I'm going to start, or I'm, I want to purge out all my stuff, and I'll kind of, because it's a conversation within my head, I won't let him know always, because I'm just going through my own motions. And then later I'll recognize that I didn't let him know that I was changing something in my routine. And to him, it probably came off like something was wrong. Like, okay, there was a point where once he told me that like, oh, when you lay in bed, I assume you're having a good day. This was before I was pregnant and became a mom. He's like, but when you sleep in, I think you're having a good day. But when you wake up early, you're stressed out. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so backwards. Because when I slept in, I was a little more like depressed. I was like, I don't have anything to do. I can just sleep. And, I was going through a lot of things. Whereas when I woke up early, I was like, oh, I can get stuff done. And I was more productive. And like, I felt good. But because I didn't even explain things to him, nor did we have a conversation, he was just kind of seeing the other way and was taking it personally. Kind of like, oh, she was out of bed to go do something, so she didn't want to.
His perception was different than what was actually going through your head. And exactly the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And that literally even happens with our kids. I don't know how verbal your daughter is, but like my son will sometimes do things to his brother. And I see that and I think, you were trying to hurt your brother. But then when I just sit and actually listen and he explains to me, no, mom, he was trying to get that, so I carried him over to it or whatever, and maybe he got hurt along the way.
Yeah.
His intention was good, or what was going through his mind was actually very good-hearted. Mm-hmm. But I just completely screwed up because the way I was perceiving it, or the way your husband was perceiving the way that you wake up.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, this is a conversation we need to have.
Well, that's the important part, is having that communication conversation, because it kind of depends on like what angle you see something or what time frame you see something. So let's say if it's, two boys, if you see your older one like yanking the baby, you're like, why are you hurting him? But what you may have not seen, if the baby was reaching towards scissors or fire or something, your older son was actually saving him. Yeah. But if you saw just the yank, you think he did something bad. Yeah. And I can imagine if you're like a stressed out parent, or like so many things are going on, and especially like older generation, can jump and like start parenting by either reprimanding or not listening. Whereas I think it sounds like you're taking the time, and I think that's called gentle parenting, where you like hear them out and see like what did actually happen. How are you feeling? Let's talk about it, and kind of hear the full story instead of jumping halfway through and assuming things.
Yeah.
Which is what especially when things are like happening fast and you see something and you just need to react and you're trying to protect again. You just want to jump in and take action and solve a problem. Yeah. But it's so important to be like, okay, well, what was the problem? Yeah. And I did this with my husband, where I'll see something and I'll jump in and I'm like, well, let me fix this. And he's like, it's similar. I feel like I need to learn from what I'm saying about parenting and my mom's relationship, because sometimes I feel like maybe I do that with my husband. He's like, you need to step away and give me the distance to make a mistake and learn. Because he's like cooking something. I'm like, oh, if you do it this way. And he's like, let me cook on my own and figure it out.
I've seen that so much with marriages and, people sharing marriage advice, people that have been married for 30 years. And it's like, you raise kids with someone and it's like, moms, stop telling your husband how to do the little things. Well, you're not changing the diaper how I would change it. You need to change it this way, or whatever it is. Yeah. Just let them do it their way, or else they're not going to want to do it. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're constantly telling them this is how to cook dinner, or this is how to take out the trash. Yeah. Even though it doesn't matter, as long as it gets done, they're just going to stop doing it, or they're not going to want to do it, or there's going to be a fight or whatever. So I totally understand that. And like the same, like the communication, everything with the kids. And it's really hard because right before the whole gentle parenting thing, right before I had 2 kids and I only had the one, I just had one kid for 3 years. Well, 4 years actually. And I felt like after 4 years almost, I had gotten to such a good point, and I was like, I have this down. Like, I'm such a good, gentle parent. I'm such a good mom to him. I'm really good at listening and stopping and taking that time. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, instead of just jumping in, taking the time to assess the situation. I was really good at that. And then I had another kid. And then it threw everything off the rails. And it's been 8 months. And I still am like, dang, going from one kid to two kids, it's so much harder to take that time to stop and pause, because now you have two kids crying. You have
Yeah.
two kids that need you. Or like you said about if, oh, the baby was about to be injured or whatever. And you feel like I have to react so much quicker. But I think that we put that pressure on ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
I'm putting the pressure on myself that I have to fix this situation immediately,
Mm-hmm.
when it doesn't. I don't need to do that. I don't need to be jumping to fix everything ASAP. What I need to do is take 5 seconds and calm down, so then I can help both of the kids
Yeah.
in a more productive way, you know?
That's such good advice because I see myself in that. I I always want to jump. If I see a problem, I want to jump on it and solve it. And I almost don't give anyone else an opportunity to do that. And in that way, I don't know. When you take that opportunity for someone to learn, whether it be for her or my husband or the in-laws or my parents, like when I'm constantly jumping in, it puts more stress on me because I feel like I'm doing everything. Whereas if I would just give them the opportunity to do it, they probably would come through. But also it shows my baby that like I'm the only one that can do it, where she could learn that other people could help as well.
Yeah.
And it's this, or maybe she can help herself, if she falls or something and I'm right there to always pick her up at some point. And there's been these different moments where just like, because first I'm always carrying her around, and after she started crawling, there was this moment where I'm like, oh, now when she needs something, because I know what she's saying, she wants me to either pick her up or bring her something, and I would, whereas there's this point where I was like, oh, now I need to sit still, and if she needs me to pick her up, she can come to me, or if she wants me to read a book, she can come to me. So kind of learning those things to make her understand that I'm not constantly going to be, not that I don't want to, but it's more so like, because she still needs to learn and understand things and grow, and if I don't let her, I'm only disabling her.
Yeah. No, I've heard that too with like speech. And sometimes kids that when their parents, because mothers are very intuitive with our babies. So if we just always know what they're wanting or needing by a noise they make or a certain way they're acting, and we're just getting it for them, sometimes instead of allowing them to use their speech or encouraging them to use their speech when they get to that age, I've read that can, that we think we're helping them, because you don't need to tell mommy you want water because I see you, signaling for water in a certain way. So I'm just going to get it for you. Or you're pointing at the sink, so I'll just get it for you, instead of just give them time to maybe try to find their words, or like your daughter crawling to you, like let her crawl to you if she needs to be picked up or if she needs you to get something for her.
Yeah. It was this weird transition that I had to accept, because I got so used to, if she points at something and I'm like, oh, I know she wants this thing. And then when she started talking, now she's kind of starting to say certain words, and she like knows banana, but she says anana. And then we tried to reinstate banana. Like we tried to like not just stick with her words, but try to teach her. But I had to catch myself, because then I would just grab it when she just points. And I was like, wait, no, she needs to ask and request, like make it a question if that's what she actually wants. Because if I'm just constantly grabbing things that she's pointing at, it kind of builds this relationship of mom will do anything and everything.
Yeah.
And it's a disadvantage to her. I read that, if you do something for your kid that they can do themselves, you're actually creating a disadvantage.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
It's like hard to just think about it constantly, but I think it's important to take those steps towards that direction, because in the end, you don't want your kid to learn to just sit there till they're 8 years old and you're still tying their shoes and putting on their shirt. And I mean, there's a certain point where if they're able to do it themselves, let them, because they want to be independent. They want to feel like they have their own things, I'm sure.
Kids, I think kids thrive so much more when you're teaching them how to do things or giving them the opportunities to do things. And it's hard because, like, if you're rushing around, you're a busy mom, you're rushing around, and we need to get out the door. I don't have time for you to spend 5 minutes trying to put your coat on. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
and I think that a lot of parents get caught up in that. And I've gotten caught up in that where it's like, it's just quicker for me to do it for you. But then it's like, well, if I'm always doing it, how are you going to learn?
And
But
how
then
will you get
another,
quicker?
exactly. And then another side of that is I feel like also once your kid does have something down, like my kid can put his shoes on no problem every single time. But then I also sometimes still remember there are going to still be times that he will ask me to do it and I will do it for him because, sometimes, like I read this once whenever he was still really young and I just wanted to remember it. Like sometimes your kid will still ask you to do things even after they are very, very good at doing them. And it's okay to still do them for them occasionally. Just like how, like, if I ask my husband, like, can you go put the car seats in for me? It's not that I can't do it, but it's just that, can you show me that you love me by doing this for me? So sometimes I have to
Absolutely.
remind myself of that because, again, the things my son can do, it's like, oh, I'm getting the baby ready. Just put your clothes on.
Mm-hmm.
But if he maybe just one day he just wants to feel extra loved, so he asks me, will you put this on for me? And sometimes I need to remember, yeah, he's 4 years old and he's very independent, but he's still my baby. He's still my
Yeah.
son. And he still wants to feel like, that compassion and that nurturing, aspect of mom. So, yeah.
Well, it's still like, because even as adults, we still want to be like cuddled and loved. We still need
Yeah.
affection. And are you familiar with the 5 love languages?
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about this till you mentioned it, but I think of it, what are my love languages versus what my husband's love language is similar to other relationships I have with adults. But I haven't thought about it yet with my baby. And to, at first it took me a while to figure out love languages because it's like, well, if my husband's love language is this and mine is this, to show my love to my husband has to be in his love language.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way he will see it. And similar to him, he has to do it in my way for me to see it.
Right.
And now I'm like, oh, I have to figure out my baby's love language. Because if it's service, I want to help her to show her love. Or if it's quality time, I don't want to just like let her off with somebody. I want to make sure we spend that quality time together. Yeah. Or if it's to figure out what it is going to be for her and make sure I follow through and listen to it. I've just always thought about it with adults, and I haven't thought about that with your relationship with your kids and how that goes, because they're going to express their love and receive how they view love within their own way.
Yeah. And I don't know if you did read the book. So my husband and I, we read the book years ago, The 5 Love Languages, and there is a book this by the same author that is The 5 Love Languages of Your Children. So it's literally a book. So it's because sometimes it's a lot, I feel like it's a lot easier as adults, we can just take the quiz and you can find out your love language.
Yeah.
But the book for the children, I haven't read it yet, but you brought it up and I do want to because, children show their needs in different ways, I feel like, than adults do. Yeah. And so it's like deciphering what is your love language. Because obviously, one could argue every kid's love language is gifts, because kids love getting things, like they love getting toys. But I think it's like that is such a good point, and something to remember so much is that your kid is not going to always receive love the way that you want to give it.
Yeah.
And I have a TikTok account. I don't know if you knew that or not, if Allie told you.
No, but I love TikTok and I'll follow you on there.
Yeah, okay. Well, I just had like 2 days ago a video go really, really viral.
Heck yeah.
And it's so funny. It was my son hugging me. And I was like, because it was on our security cameras, and he was giving me a hug, and I was like crying because I was so happy he was hugging me. And it's funny because I don't know what his love language is yet, but I am pretty sure that it is not physical touch, because the whole video was like, basically showing that my son, he doesn't really hug. Like, I will ask him for hugs probably 20 times a day, and he'll say no 19 times, you know? But I would love to show him my love for him constantly by hugging him
Yeah.
or cuddling him. But that's just not, that is, like you said, like, that's just not his love language. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably quality time. But anyway, so it's just funny that you said that. And I actually, in the last 2 days, been thinking about that a lot
How
because of that
funny.
video and because of just really reflecting on he's 4 years old. And you know how parents are always saying, like, mothers, I'm so touched out. Like, a lot of
Yeah.
moms say they're touched out by the end of the day. And I've never been able to relate to that because
Mm,
I've honestly never really been touched out just because my son, he's not constantly like putting his hands on me and hugging me and stuff, you
mm-hmm.
know? So it's very interesting how different your children
Yeah.
can be.
It's silly. So I think my husband's love language is like quality time. He just wants to hang out like over anything. And then second is like physical touch for him versus for me, my love language is service. And then quality time. And it's silly because for him, he just wants to hang out and he'd rather not like do the dishes or like vacuum. Where for me to show my love, I want to vacuum and do the dishes. And I see him showing love when he does that. But to him, he thinks that's so like last thing. And so we had a lot of things where we didn't see eye to eye when you take those things into consideration. And then because he also enjoys physical touch and he just will hug me or do whatever, I actually did feel touched out. I didn't know that was a real thing. And I learned it on TikTok. I was like, oh, that explains why I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
But my baby, and I feel so bad for feeling touched out because she just loves me. So I'm like, why am I complaining that I'm receiving hugs? But she just is constantly mom, 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 mom. She's on top of me. She's poking me. She's biting me. She's eating me. She's here. She's there. Like this is the only time I do get away from her is this hour for the podcast, and either him or his mom will babysit her. But even through that, I'll get videos where she's like, mom, 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 mom. And I feel bad complaining because I'm like, she just loves me so much.
Yeah.
Why am I upset? But now I'm starting to think about these languages. I'm like, oh, is her love language physical touch? Or
Yeah,
is
it could
it,
be.
yeah, because she just wants to hang. And I'm like, maybe it is quality time because she just wants to hang out. But I feel bad because I feel touched out. So when my husband wants to just like hug me, I'm like, oh my gosh, nobody just hug me. Just nobody hug me right now because I'm
Yeah.
just, please
It's
nobody hug
real.
me.
It's real. And it's okay. And you just have to remember, like, I know it's probably so hard right now, but you just have to remember, like, okay, I'm feeling touched out every single day right now, but maybe next year she'll be different. Or maybe, it's only gonna last. It might only last a year. It might last 10 years, but it's not gonna be like that forever. That's like my son. Like, I'm very surprised that he's not like that because he breastfed for 3 years.
Wow.
So you would just think, like, a child that breastfeeds, that does extended breastfeeding, you would think they would be so attached to their mom and they would crave that like physical intimacy with their mom. But that honestly didn't really have an impact on it at all. Like, he would, even as a 1-year-old, like your daughter's age, he would breastfeed all the time. But
Yeah.
unless he was nursing, he honestly just, he didn't want to be sitting on my lap. He didn't want to be hugging me or touching me.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting that you can see it kind of early on. And I was thinking when you were saying, it might end in a year, it might end in 10 years. And I think that's one of my biggest fear through it all is that, like, what if it ends tomorrow? What if I don't know it? Or what if it ends today? What if today's the last day she's over me and then tomorrow she just stops and then never does it again? And all I'm going to be able to do is sit there and cry and miss the fact that, oh my God, she used to want to hang out with me and now she doesn't. I have this, like, just fear instilled in me that, like, what if today's the last day she does something and we don't know it? And so I'll complain and I'll go through these things of like, oh, annoyances or being upset or being tired. And then I have to remind myself, like, I don't want this to go away because I'm not actually emotionally ready because I'm so assumptive of like, oh, it's going to be like that tomorrow. It's going to be like that, and that's why I'm tired. But if you think of it like, oh, today's the last day, it's like, oh, never mind. Let me just hold them in. And that's kind of what I thought about when we were sitting in the bathroom last night through the storm. My hands were getting so tired because she's getting big now. And like, I didn't want to put him down because then she would stir up and it was right against the wall. So I was like kind of holding her whole weight, and then my shoulders were getting tired. And I was like, man, I should just probably put her down. And then I'm like, what the heck am I thinking? We're in the middle of a storm. The last place she should be is on a bathroom floor. Where she needs to be right now is in my arms. And if I need to hold her for a year like this is what needs to happen, because it won't always be like this. But like, what if, God forbid, this is the end? Where she needs to be is my arms. Yeah. And such a morbid kind of thought to go through.
But that's the reality, and that's the situation you were in. So,
it's so wild. It's you love them so much, but it's so much responsibility, because you still want to take care of yourself as a person, but you are now taking care of another human being, and in your case, another human being. And I'm sure their characters are very different. So now you have to give your time to your older and your baby, while also making sure they're together. Like, it's all fluid and going together, yet they can see that they're an independent person.
Yeah.
While still giving time to yourself and your husband. Because you have these multiple relationships that are going on all at the same time.
And it's impossible. It really is impossible. I feel like every day, like you were saying, how her nap schedule could change in a day, because every day your kids wake up and it seems like every day there's a different routine.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where giving yourself to your children equally, and to your husband, and to yourself, and then family and friends or whoever is left. It's one of those things where it's like, it's finding that balance is going to look different every single day. So it's never really like, okay, I have this routine down and this is a good routine. Sometimes it feels like that, but then tomorrow it completely changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many unknowns that enter, and it's silly because we want to stick to a routine because I don't know, for me it takes anxiety off, because then I know what's coming up and I can plan ahead and I can move things around. And with her, I'm with her 24/7. So for me, if I have a routine and I know when I get a block of time, then I can plan ahead to actually get something done, and I rely on those. So when things change, and I'm trying to get better at it, but it used to be a lot worse, where I would just get this anxiety, like, if like she sleeps for an hour, I try to take that time to like edit my videos to make sure that I can post them and like whatever, get ready to send the email with the link so you can enter the podcast correctly. And so I'm like, okay, I'll plan that she's going to lay down for an hour and these are the things I can get done. And then if it's 20 minutes, I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't get this done. I didn't get this done. I didn't get this done. And then I start feeling bad and more anxiety starts creeping in. And I'm like, dang it, now what? And then it kind of takes away from that time, because now she's up and she wants to play. But I'm like, dang it, I wish you would have slept a little bit longer because I still needed to finish this. And it's such a like weird thought, because I'm like, no, the kid just wants to hang out and I need to put my time onto her now. But then at the same time, like, I still need to make sure I'm taking care of myself and my things are done as well. Because if I keep putting myself on the back burner, which I very often do, and I think most moms do, because you're so busy taking care of everybody else that like by the time it's 11 p.m., you're just like, oh, I was also supposed to do these things for myself that I forgot. Yeah. But it's so hard to find. I think maybe time management is one of the more important things that you try to figure out as an adult. Like time management with your kids, time management with are you working or are you staying at home with the kiddos?
Yeah, so I always say that I'm a stay-at-home mom, but when I look at the last 3 years I've been a stay-at-home mom, those 3 years have still been spent doing something. So at first I was doing like childcare. So I was babysitting a little girl like 4 days a week. So that was like my income for that period of time. And now I've restarted my photography business.
Yay!
So yes, it's been really fun, but it's been a challenge, like you said. Like when I know when my kids are awake and I'm home alone, I rarely attempt to get editing done or anything like that, because I know, like you were saying, like, oh, she only napped for 20 minutes and now all you're thinking of, I didn't get this and this done. For me personally, I don't even put in my mind the expectation of getting that kind of work done while my kids are awake during the day, because I know I'm just going to end up disappointed. I'm going to end up honestly angry. I'm going to end up angry, yelling at my 4-year-old because I need to work. Whereas, so instead what I do, since I'm doing the photography thing, is I just wait till they go to bed. And then if I have to stay up until 1 or 2 a.m., that's just what I do because
Yeah.
at least I am alone. You know what I mean? And I
You
don't
have that peace of mind that they're not going to wake
exactly.
up, interrupt. You have to start over, and then you have to get going. And then is it going to be,
I
yeah,
can't do it. Because it could take, if I try to do it when my kids are awake, it's going to take me 5 hours. Whereas if I just wait until the end of the day and I wait for
it might be 20
nighttime,
minutes.
it's
Yeah.
going to take, yeah, so much less time. And I'm not going to be as stressed out.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it's so hard. And like you were saying about you're constantly thinking of utilizing every single minute of your time. So today, because I thought this was going to be 3 p.m. my time, so I dropped the kids off. I had it down to the very minute. I got everything done this morning, dropped the kids off, and I'm coming home and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have 15 minutes before I need to get on the computer. How am I going to utilize those 15 minutes? And I did. I literally had those 15 minutes planned out. But then I got here and I had an hour because I messaged you and I didn't have to be on until 4. So then I quickly was like, okay, how am I going to spend this hour because an hour in my house alone never happens. Never.
Yeah.
I'm never home alone without kids or without having something going on.
Yeah.
Because usually if I don't have my kids, I'm doing photography. Like I'm out on a photography job. So anyway, I was just thinking like, I need to maximize this.
What is this gift that I never get, and what can I get done in this block of time?
Yeah.
It's so silly because I wish I would have been more open because I was ready to start it at 2, which would have been your 3.
Oh, yeah.
And then we could have gotten it done. Well, then
fine.
it would have taken your hour away because I've been worried about her having to go to sleep soon and I need to be there. And that's why I was like, oh, we might have to cut it short. And so we could have figured that out. But it's funny that I'm the same way where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 15 minutes. Okay, I'll be able to do this, and this. And you line it up and it's perfect and you time it by minute. And then if something gets delayed, it's going to delay this other thing. But every minute is so important where you're like,
It is.
Sometimes when I have to pee, I'm like, oh, well, I can wait 30 minutes because then, you know, if the mother-in-law is going to come and help me babysit, then I'll just go do it then all at the same time because that's my block of time to get it done. So I can fill up my water, I can go pee, I can start the computers, I can make sure that this is on, and then I can send that email, and I try to block it in these like appropriate time frames. But that's the thing I also was going to mention. Sometimes I try to, right now she's in this weird sleep schedule. She goes to bed at 1 in the morning and wakes up at 10. Yeah, so I'm up with her really late. And I've tried everything. We've tried moving it.
Kids, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the schedule that we're doing it, whatever it works. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, I can get it done at night. But then at night I'm so tired by 1, 2 in the morning that I don't want to do anything. And I'm like, oh, well, let me wake up in the morning and do it. And then sometimes she like stirs up and still needs like the boob. So I worry that if I wake up and go do something, then if she needs me and I'm not there, she'll fully wake up, but she actually is supposed to sleep 3 hours more. And so I'm just in this,
with us, yeah.
I'm in this constant thought of overthinking because you want to make sure they're getting the best sleep. And they're like, well, it's technically my time that I could do something. And then at the same time, like, well, right now the time is there. So I want to make sure I'm 100% available for them. And if there are available spots for me, that I want to take advantage of them. Yeah. And it's this constant thing of like trying to figure out, trying to make it flow. I don't know. I guess that's just how all moms feel. And we're just.
Yeah. It does get easier, like, as the kids get older. Like I said, like, my 4-year-old's super independent. So when he was, like, 3 and 4 years old, it gets easier. Like, right now, she's still breastfeeding. So you are going to feel a little bit more needed. You know, it'll get easier once she gets older. But then what will most likely happen, maybe in your situation, is as soon as it starts to get easier, then you're going to have another kid. And then the whole cycle starts over again. And it's amazing. And obviously it's like,
yeah,
this is a dream come true. This is what we want so badly, is to have these babies. Like it just is the world to us. Like it really is. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's just funny how we are still trying to grow careers, and we're still trying to, we don't want to lose ourselves.
Yeah.
We still want to have things that we're passionate about and that we are, you know, we're creating something.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we have the babies and we have the toddlers, and we're potty training and breastfeeding, and who knows, maybe when my 2 finally start getting independent, both of them, and I'm growing my business, and then I might have another one.
Yeah.
And it'll start all over.
It's always when you like plan for something and then it changes, or if you don't plan for something, it changes. And it's these life's way of like challenging you and making you grow. But sometimes I'm like, oh, it's just moms. But like, if you started a new job, there's so many obstacles you have to overcome and learn. And then if you get promoted, you get more obstacles thrown your way. So it's like, if we think of it as a job, you know, when you become a mom, you just started. And so you have to learn all these unknowns. You have to know who to talk to, how to talk to them, where do you send all these files, like whatever the job might entail. But this is your new job. And so it's scary when you jump into something that you don't know. And then say your second kid, let's call it a promotion. So you're within the same business. You kind of know what's going on, but now you're talking to other people. You're getting other things involved. You're trying to figure out traveling. Family wants to come over. How the heck do you do holidays? Where do you put all this stuff? Like, I'm with this, I'm getting to like give myself a little room to breathe, because sometimes I'm like, why don't I have it figured out? And then when you like, nobody in that situation has it figured out. No mom when they start has it figured out, and nobody who's not a mom, even like dads or anybody who's just in a new situation, in a new environment, they don't have it figured out. We're just all trying to figure out like, what the heck are we doing with all this stuff that we have, and how do we time manage, and how do we figure out our relationships through it all?
Yeah, that's so true. And then sometimes once you get things figured out, or sometimes you don't figure things out for your first kid, and then you kind of figure things more out for your second.
Yeah.
You kind of reflect, you know what I mean? Like you're spending that time. Like right now I'm reflecting so much on like, it feels like I'm starting over with another kid. And so I'm looking at, okay, what did I do with my oldest that I don't want to do with my second, or that I do want to do with my second? And I know that my ideas of the things I'm going to incorporate with my parenting, they're not going to work out perfectly, because they never do. But just growing, you know what I mean? If it's 2 years or if it's 4 years, you know, between your kids, or however much time passes, it's just so cool to like, I don't know, just to see how your parenting has impacted your kid as they grow.
Yeah.
And to learn from it. Like, I see my 4-year-old and I see the ways how he interacts with others, and the ways that he interacts with me and his dad, and everything that he's learning all the time. And I'm just always thinking like, okay, how was I when he was a baby that impacted who he is now?
Mm-hmm.
What should I do differently? You know, I feel like I'm just always, that's what I was saying about like staying up late at night, thinking about these things.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that it keeps me up at night. I'm just always thinking about how can I be a better mom tomorrow? What am I going to do differently tomorrow? You know?
So I was thinking of like that job reference or metaphor I did. It kind of is almost like your job review, where you're like talking to your kid and they're filling out a form. Like, okay, well, what worked? What didn't? What do we need to improve on? And you just try to figure out a way to get better. I was going to ask, you know how in the beginning we talked about, you know, as a first-time mom, you feel like you don't necessarily have credibility or confidence to stand up towards certain advice, like coming from your parents or your mom or whatever. Do you feel like you've gained more credibility and that confidence now with the second kid? Because technically now you can say like, well, this is what I did with my first son and it worked or didn't work. So therefore I can stand strong and say, this is what I'm going to do, you know, against your like mother's advice or somebody else. Do you think you've gained a little more of that?
I do, but I wouldn't even say credibility. I wouldn't even say that it would be like, well, my 4-year-old does this, this, and this right, so clearly I'm doing something right. I think what it more is that when you have your second kid, at least in my situation, once I had my first kid, I was very sure about what I wanted to do, but I was very timid in telling people. I didn't really want people to know what my parenting style was. Mm-hmm. But then once I had my second kid, even though I only have that 4 years of credibility, I feel more sure in myself. I feel like I have so much more confidence. So the way I wanted to give birth the second time around, I had confidence in it. I was like, yeah, I've done this. Like, I know how to do this and I'm doing it and I'm going to tell people and I don't care what they have to say about it. And the same way with like my parenting, like the things I'm doing with him, like if it's cloth diapering or if it's co-sleeping or whatever, or baby-led weaning, all of those things, it is some of the credibility, but it really is just the confidence. Like I have the confidence now where I can't guarantee that what I'm doing is right.
Yeah.
But now that I have two kids and I have been doing this for so long, I feel like you just get to a point where it's like, I don't really care what anyone else has to say because I'm
You
in it
trust
and this is what I'm
yourself.
doing. Yeah, it's like I
Yeah.
do trust myself so much more now. And
I love that.
it's not because like my 4-year-old is turning out so well, because he's still very much a normal 4-year-old. Like he does the normal 4-year-old things. And I really am just trusting. You know how they say trust the process? That's
Yeah.
how I kind of feel I am with parenting right now. It's like I can't guarantee that he's going to end up being some successful, amazing man one day who is going to make a difference in the world. Like I don't know that. I'm just sort of trusting this process and just hoping for the best. And I can't, 4 years into this, I cannot live anymore worried about what all the people in my life are going to think about my parenting. I really just have to do what I feel is right. And if someone else doesn't like it, then they're just not going to like it, you know?
Yeah. It's so silly because I think there's like a metaphor that somebody did about a race, and if you have two racers, and if somebody's running and they're constantly looking around, that's going to take their time and energy and actually slow them down, and you're not going to get to your goal, which is finishing the race. And I'm not saying motherhood's racing. I'm just saying it takes time. And when you're a mom and you have a baby, or you have two babies, you've got your photography, you have other things going on, you just don't have time to even look around and see what other people are saying about your parenting style. All you have time for is like to literally put on blinders, because you can't even get involved in other things. And you just need to get wherever it is that you're going, because you only have 2 minutes today to do this one thing. And so you just need to get there. And it just becomes about you and your family, and not necessarily looking around seeing what everybody else is doing. But that does take confidence to say like, hey, I am certain in myself that I'm doing all right. You mentioned, you're not looking at it as credibility because he's not like so great. It's almost like seeing it, oh, I didn't fail. Whatever I did, they didn't get hurt, and they're all right, so I'm doing okay. Because I think, at least for me, I'm questioning, like, is this going to be bad for them? Are they going to get sick from this? Are they going to trip? Whereas once they make it, I can be like, all right, I didn't fail. So I have that credibility and confidence because I didn't fail.
Yeah, that's true.
In a big way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's helpful for anybody, but also, Jourdan, I was going to say, I do need to go feed my baby and put her for her nap. Thank you so much for joining me. And I feel like we didn't get to any questions that more about motherhood, but I feel like we had such a good conversation.
No, it was great.
To you.
I really appreciate you having me on.
I'd love to have you on again if you're interested. I'm just chatting with moms. Before you go, I will ask you, if you had one advice to give to moms, what would it be?
Okay. New moms, having your first baby. If you're planning to go back to work full time and you're about to have your first ever baby, just plan for if that doesn't happen, because once that baby comes, you really don't know how you're going to feel. And my best piece of advice would be to get to a place in life where you would be able to quit your job and stay home with your baby, or work from home, because once your baby comes, your whole world changes and everything you thought you knew changes. So
yeah, that's so beautiful and so true. You just don't want to leave him. You just want to, at least and the moms I talked to, I was in the same place where I was like, oh, I was going to go do this, and I had all these ideas, and you see it on TV where everyone's just kind of like keep going with their life, which I'm not saying your life stops. It just priority change.
Yeah. You can't just leave your baby, drop them off at a daycare for 40 hours a week. Okay, see ya, baby. You're 6 weeks old.
Yeah, you miss so much.
See you Friday. That's not how it is. No.
There's so many moments that are missed. There's so many things that, again, they change by day. And so if you have the opportunity to stay home to be able to witness those, because then they grow up and then you can't undo it. You can't go back and spend more time with them.
No, never.
Oh, that's so true. All right, Jourdan, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to let you go, but I'll be in touch about doing it again if you're interested.
Perfect. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, girl.
Okay, bye.
All right, thanks, everybody, and I'll see you next time.